This program contains adult language and situations which may be considered offensive to some viewers and/or children, but more likely their parents.
Alright, people. I have a little history lesson for you kiddies here. So, back in the 60s, my grandmother and grandfather on my mother's side, and I use my mother's side very loosely, okay? My grandmother and my grandfather on my mother's side, which I say very loosely, okay? My grandmother and my grandfather on my mother's side, I say my mother's side very loosely. So they got married and they had 3 children, okay? The first 2 was my rich uncle. It was my rich uncle who was the firstborn. Then it was my mom's, and then the 3rd child was my Uncle Scott. Okay, so what's going on here is my grandmother and grandfather, they wanted 2 children. Okay, they wanted a boy and they wanted a girl. Okay, so they had 2 children. They had my rich uncle and my mother. Okay, and their whole idea, their whole plan for them was pretty much to make the family look good. Okay, so with that said, they groomed my rich uncle to be a big wig at a big corporation, and my mom, she became a nurse, which is the lowest fucking job you can ever get. Okay, now, I mean, unless you're like a fucking doctor, yeah, a nurse is like a nurse is like the bottom of the barrel job, especially in Buffalo. Okay, most women in the Buffalo, New York area become nurses because that's what's around, pretty much. They don't feel like moving out of state. They don't feel like doing anything different. It's just, oh yeah, anytime you see a woman try to get a job, oh yeah, I'm doing this nursing thing. It's like the most common fucking job in Buffalo right now. And I live in the shitty fucking city because there's no jobs. So, you know, because you have different degrees of nurses, you know. You have your CNAs, which are like your welfare recipient nurse. You know, those are the ones that you hear about. Yeah, I wipe ass for a living. And the nurses always do the bitch work while the doctors just come in and ask you a bunch of questions like, oh, why'd you get arrested? You know, they're more like they're more like a police officer than you know, trying to, you know, take care of you. It's always the nurses that do the bitch work in the hospital. You're not going to see an actual doctor, you know, give a shot, take your blood pressure. No. That's for my little slave nurses to take care of that shit. But I digress. So my mom becomes a nurse. My rich uncle becomes big wig at a corporation that we're not allowed to mention anymore, or else I go to jail. But what about my other uncle? Well, here's the thing. My grandmother and my grandfather wanted 2 kids. That's all they wanted was 2 kids, male, female, and they wanted, everything for them. They wanted, they pretty much raised my rich uncle and my mom to be like, to be, what do you call it? To make the family look good, pretty much, because whatever. But, shit happens and another kid is made. And at this point, my grandmother didn't even give a shit about my Uncle Scott. She didn't even acknowledge she was pregnant, so that she had my Uncle Scott right in the middle of the living room floor. Okay? And probably right on top of one of Shadow's fur piles as well. Right on top of, right in the middle of a fur pile. She didn't even acknowledge she was pregnant. It's just, oh, what the fuck's going on? Oh, look, I'm having a baby. And it was my Uncle Scott. Now, since this other baby came into play, his role was to be the whipping boy of the Davis family. And so what happens is, whenever my rich uncle or my mom get in trouble, guess who takes the blame? My Uncle Scott. So my rich uncle's over there, sniffing glue and, doing heavy drinking, and my mom's over there doing hard drugs and whatever, but we never hear about that. We only hear about when Scott makes a mistake. We only hear about when Scott is using drugs. You know what I'm saying? Scott's, let me just say, Scott's, the only reason Scott was born was to take the heat off my rich uncle and my mother. So, Scott becomes what he is, and my rich uncle and my mom, they're being spoiled all their life, and it gets to their head. And no wonder why my Uncle Scott, no wonder why he hates the family, because he was literally raised to be the whipping boy of the family. Okay, so of course he's gonna grow up to be fucked up. Mommy and Daddy paid for college for the rich uncle and my mom. They didn't pay for college for him. They're like, fuck you. You're supposed to be here to take the heat off your brother and sister here. When they go out and party, and they do something stupid, we need to bring up something stupid that you did. To take the heat off them, because they're supposed to be, they're supposed to be the breadwinners of the family here. So, May 13th, 1984, I'm born. And it's my mom and my dad who may or may not, be related to each other. But the thing is that my father's mother hated my mother, for some reason. And pretty much, was very critical. Maybe it was because, they didn't want them to date because they were like second or third cousins or something. I don't know. But word through the grapevine is that my parents are related somehow. You know, they're both from Lovejoy. No, let's break it down. You're both from Lovejoy. And they both met at a very young age, maybe a family reunion or something. So, what we know about my parents coincides with the whole inbreeding thing. Inbreeding can cause mental illness, can cause Asperger's syndrome as well. Okay, what we know about the area in general, Lovejoy. Like I said, there's a lot of midgets in Lovejoy. And yes, midgets are product of inbreeding. Okay. So is having a big forehead too. Well, I shouldn't say that. What happens is the recessive genes, okay? This is what happens. The recessive genes, okay, the recessive genes are usually like a lot of bad diseases, okay? There are usually a lot of bad diseases when it comes to recessive genes and whatnot. So, it's completely possible for someone to have a baby that has all the characteristics of being inbred, but not actually being inbred. And the way they do it, what happens is, what if one parent, because the recessive genes are kind of rare too. So if one parent has a recessive gene, and the other parent has a recessive gene, well then every time they make a baby, they're going to have that bad outcome. This is why, and I hate to bring it up, but this is why Brian Hewlin's kids have that, I don't even know what the fuck it's called, macular papillary dysphoria, whatever the fuck it's called. I don't know what the fuck it's called, but it's fucking stupid. So anytime, and you know, I'm not saying that him and his wife are related, but it's obviously that he has one part of the recessive gene and she has one part of the recessive gene. So every time that they, because both of their kids have the exact same bullshit going on. Okay? The exact same disease. His wife has a couple kids with another man. They're fine. Because the other man probably didn't have the other part of the recessive gene. So every single time these two fuck, they're going to have another kid that's going to have the same exact problem. Okay? And inbreeding, because it's family members, okay? What happens is all it does is it just makes that risk so much higher. Okay? So that's what happens. I mean, it's totally possible for two random strangers to get together, have a baby, and have it have fucking midget, have it fucking have cleft palate, have it fucking have club foot. You know, it's completely possible, but it's more likely that'll happen if the two people are related. So, what I'm saying is at a very young age, I had, you know, I looked up to my Uncle Scott, okay? And my parents didn't like that. Because he was like the whipping boy of the family. And slowly but surely, my parents were like, we need to get him away from Uncle Scott. And so they started treating me like dirt, okay? They were just like, well, we're gonna treat him just like fucking Scott then. That's what they said. We're gonna treat him just like Scott. And they started treating me like Scott. And then they started realizing, well, you know, now we don't just have one person to blame for everything stupid my rich uncle or my mom does. Now we have two people. So now, whenever I steal, whenever something's missing, whenever something stupid happens, me and my Uncle Scott are the first ones to be blamed for it. Because now I'm the whipping boy. I'm supposed to be the person that's supposed to take the heat off of my rich uncle or my mom. And thus, I get treated like shit. Just like Uncle Scott gets treated like shit. Now, let's imagine something different here. Let's imagine that my grandma and grandfather decided to treat all the children like equals. Here's what would happen. Here's what I think would happen, at least. No one would go to college, okay? Everyone would have to pay for their own college. So that means my rich uncle and my mom would never get a fucking education, okay? They would never get an education. Which would mean that they would be on the same level as my Uncle Scott, which isn't a bad thing. It really isn't. But what's going to happen is, you know, it's not, you know, that also means that my Uncle Scott would be on the same level as them as well. So everyone grows up the same, and everybody gets their fair shot, okay? And let's face it, my grandfather made a lot of fucking money. He was like a millionaire, and you know, he could pay for everyone to go to college fucking twice, okay? That wasn't a problem. The problem was that he didn't want to spend a dime. So all I'm saying is history repeats itself, and I mean that's pretty much the gist of our family. It's just one thing after another, and it's never gonna stop. It's never gonna stop unless we make it stop. So let's not make fun of Scott anymore, okay? Let's teach my rich uncle how to actually be the bigger man instead of him trying to be the bigger alpha man. Okay? Let's teach my mom how not to lie. Let's teach the whole family not to lie. You know, over stupid shit. You know, oh, your uncle saw you at the Chinese buffet. Yeah, well, we found out that wasn't true. We found out that wasn't true. He never saw me there. He saw me at the dollar store. Well, fuck. Dollar store is not the Chinese restaurant now, is it? Nope, it's not the Chinese restaurant. So, you lied. You lied. And you know what? I'm gonna keep, every time I catch my mom in a lie, I'm calling her out on it. I'm gonna show her that every time she lies, I can fact check it. You fact check everything until the cows come home. Okay? You fact check the shit out of it. You know? Remember, I'm a sneaky motherfucker. Remember that. Remember that, people. I'm a sneaky motherfucker. Just remember that. Next time you want to tell lies, I'm a sneaky motherfucker.